Namaste, Dhanava Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Mahārāja, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 22, Text 21. Shastres fihan eva sunichito nirnam kshemasya sadhyag vimrasheshu hetu asanga atma vyati rikta atmani dridharatir brahmani nirgunhe chaya. It has been conclusively decided in the scriptures after due consideration that the ultimate goal for the welfare of human society is detachment from the bodily concept of life and increased and steadfast attachment for the Supreme Lord, who is transcendental beyond the modes of material nature. Purport. Everyone in human society is engaged for the ultimate benefit of life, but persons who are in the bodily conception cannot achieve the ultimate goal, nor can they understand what it is. The ultimate goal of life is described in Bhagavad Gita 2.59, Param Drishtva Nivartate. When one finds out the supreme goal of life, he naturally becomes detached from the bodily concept. Here in this verse, the indication is that one has to steadfastly increase attachment for the transcendence, Brahmani. As confirmed in Vedanta Sutra 1.1.1, Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Without inquiry about the supreme or the transcendence, one cannot give up attachment for this material world. By the evolutionary process in 8,400,000 species of life, one cannot understand the ultimate goal of life because in all those species of life, the bodily conception is very prominent. Tato Brahma Jigyasa means that in order to get out of the bodily conception, one has to increase attachment to or inquiry about Brahman. Then he can be situated in the transcendental devotional service. Shravhanam Kirtanam Vishnu. To increase attachment for Brahman means to engage in devotional service. Those who are attached to the impersonal form of Brahman cannot remain attached for very long. Impersonalists, after rejecting this world as mithya or false, Jagan Mithya, come down to this Jagan Mithya, although they take sannyas to increase their attachment for Brahman. Similarly, many yogis who are attached to the localized aspect of Brahman as Paramatma, great sages like Vishvamitra, also fall down as victims of women. Therefore, increased attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead is advised in all Shastras. That is the only way of detachment from material existence, and is explained in Bhagavad Gita 2.59 as Param Drishtva Nivartate. One can cease material activities when he actually has the taste for devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended love of Godhead as the ultimate goal of life, Prema Pum Arto Mahan. Without increasing love of Godhead, one cannot achieve the perfectional stage of the transcendental position. Text 22. Sashradhaya Bhagavad Dharmacharyaya Jigyashaya Dhyatmika Yoga Nistaya Yogeshvaro Pasanaya Chanityam Punyashrava Kataya Punyayacha. Attachment for the Supreme can be increased by practicing devotional service, inquiring about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, applying Bhakti Yoga in life, worshipping the Yogeshvar, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by hearing and chanting about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These actions are pious in themselves. Purport. The word Yogeshvar is applicable to both the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and his devotees also. In Bhagavad Gita, this word occurs in 2 places. In the 18th chapter, 18.78, Krishna is described as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hare, who is the master of all mystic power, Yatra Yogeshvara Krishna. Yogeshvara is also described at the end of the 6th chapter, 6.47, Same Yuktattamomata. This Yuktatma indicates the topmost of all yogis, the devotees, who can also be called Yogeshvar. In this verse, Yogeshvara Upasana means to render service to a pure devotee. Thus Narottam Das Thakur says, Chadiya Vaishnava Seva Nishtara Payeche Keba. Without serving a pure devotee, one cannot advance in spiritual life. Prahlad Maharaj also has said, Naishammatistavad uru kraman grim, Sparshatyanartha pagamo yadhartha, Mahiya sampadha rajobhishekam, Nishkinchananam navrinitayavat. Bhagavatam 7.5.32. One should take shelter of a pure devotee who has nothing to do with this material world but is simply engaged in devotional service. By serving him only, one can transcend the qualitative material condition. In this verse, it is recommended Yogeshvara Upasanaya. Yogeshvara Upasanaya. That one serve the lotus feet of the topmost yogi or the devotee. To serve the topmost devotee means to hear from him about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the mouth of a pure devotee is to acquire a pious life. In Bhagavad Gita 7.28, it is also said that without being pious, one cannot engage in devotional service. Yesham tvanta gatam papam jananam punya karmanam tedvanva moha nirmukta bhajanti mam dridhavrata. To become fixed in devotional service, one has to become completely cleansed from the contamination of the material modes of nature. For work in devotional service, the first item is Adho Gaurvashrayam. One should accept a bona fide spiritual master. And from the bona fide spiritual master, inquire about one's transcendental occupational duties. Sadharma Pracha, and follow in the footsteps of great saintly persons, devotees, Sadhu Marga Anugamanam. These are the instructions given in Bhakti Rasa Mrita Sindhu by Rupa Goswami. The conclusion is that to increase attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one has to accept a bona fide spiritual master and learn from him the methods of devotional service, and hear from him about the transcendental message and glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this way, one has to increase his conviction about devotional service. Then it will be very easy to increase attachment for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 23. Our Atendriyarma Atendriyarama Shagostya Trishnaya Tatsamatanam Apari Grahena Cha Vivikta Rucha Paritosha Atmani Vinhaharer Guna Piyusapanat. One has to make progress in spiritual life not by associating with persons who are simply interested in sense gratification and making money. Not only such persons, but one who associates with such persons should be avoided. One should mold his life in such a way that he cannot live in peace without drinking the nectar of the glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hare. One can be thus elevated by being disgusted with the taste for sense enjoyment. Purport. In the material world, everyone is interested in money and sense gratification. The only objective is to earn as much money as possible and utilize it for sense gratification. The only objective is to earn as much money as possible and utilize it for satisfaction of the senses. Srila Shukadev Goswami thus described the activities of materialistic persons. Nidraya hriyate naktam vyabhayena chavavaya diva karte haya rajan kutumba bharanenava. Bhagavatam 2.1.3. This is a typical example of materialistic persons. At night, they waste their time by sleeping more than 6 hours or by wasting time in sex indulgence. This is their occupation at night, and in the morning they go to their office or business place just to earn money. As soon as there is some money, they become busy in purchasing things for their children and others. Such persons are never interested in understanding the values of life. What is God? What is the individual soul? What is the relationship with God, etc.? Things are degraded to such an extent that those who are supposed to be religious are also at the present moment interested only in sense gratification. The number of materialistic persons in this age of Kali has increased more than in any other age. Therefore, persons who are interested in going back home, back to Godhead, should not only engage in the service of realized souls, but should give up the company of materialistic persons, whose only aim is to earn money and employ it in sense gratification. They should also not accept the objectives of materialistic persons, namely money and sense gratification. Therefore it is stated, Bhakti pare shanu bhavo viraktir anyatra chaha. Bhagavatam 11.2.42. To advance in devotional service, one should be uninterested in the materialistic way of life. That which is the subject matter of the satisfaction for the devotees is of no interest to the non-devotees. Simple negation or giving up the company of materialistic persons will not do. We must have engagements. Sometimes it is found that a person interested in spiritual advancement gives up the company of material society and goes to a secluded place, as recommended for the yogis especially. But that will also not help a person in spiritual advancement. For in many instances, such yogis also fall down. As far as jnanis are concerned, generally they fall down without taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. The impersonalists or the voidists can simply avoid the positive material association. They cannot remain fixed in transcendence without being engaged in devotional service. The beginning of devotional service is to hear about the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is recommended in this verse. Vina harer guna piyusapanat. Vina harer guna piyusapanat. One must drink the nectar of the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and this means that one must always engage in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. It is the prime method for advancing in spiritual life. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommends this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. If one wants to make advancement in spiritual life, by great fortune, he may meet a bona fide spiritual master and from him learn about Krishna. By serving both the spiritual master and Krishna, he gets the seed of service, the Bhakti Lata Bija. And if he sows the seed within his heart and waters it by hearing and chanting, it grows into a luxuriant Bhakti Lata, or Bhakti creeper. The creeper is so strong that it penetrates the covering of the universe and reaches the spiritual world, and continues to grow on and on until it reaches and takes shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna, just as an ordinary creeper also grows on and on until it takes a solid shelter on a roof. Then it very steadily grows and produces the required fruit. The real cause of the growing of such fruit, which is here called the nectar of hearing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is to water the creeper of devotional service by hearing and chanting. The purport is that one cannot live outside the society of devotees. One must live in the association of devotees, where there is constant chanting and hearing of the glories of the Lord. The Krishna consciousness movement is started for this purpose, so that hundreds of ISKCON centers may give people a chance to hear and chant, to accept the spiritual master, and to disassociate themselves from persons who are materially interested. For in this way, one can make solid advancement in going back home, back to Godhead. And thus ends our reading for today. We will continue from text 24 on Wednesday. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Mahārāja Ki Jai. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Rupa Nuga Guru Varga Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the worldwide devotees. Sama Bhaktivedanta Vrinda Ki Jai. Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai, Nrsimhapali Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Giri Govardhan Gupta Govardhan Dham Ki Jai, Sham Kund Radha Kund Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Scientific Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Institute Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi Hari 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 Bol, Jai Shrimati Uma Devi Dasi Ki Jai. Hare Krishna Hari Bol.
Krishna Kesav Prabhu Ki
Jai Gurudev. Dandavad Pranam Didi. Hari Bol.